Hello. I'm very excited for this very special episode, Steve.
This is a very special episode. We're kind of double dipping here. This is great. So we're going to do one amount of work for two amounts of output, which is, I think, fantastic. But also we have, so I'm Steve, and I'm pretty sure you're Kaslin. And
yeah, maybe we should introduce ourselves since folks may not know us. Yeah,
that's a good point. We have two sets of audiences. Half of each don't know what's going on. So this is perfect. Why don't you go first, Kaslin? Who are you?
All right. Hello, everyone who listens to the podcast and maybe doesn't listen to the Kubernetes podcast regularly, or if you're just tuning in, wherever you may be listening from. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Kubernetes podcast from Google, and I do all sorts of things Kubernetes cloud native, containery related. Nice. And I'm excited about our episode today to talk about platform engineering, which we'll get to in a minute. But first, Steve.
Yeah, who am I? I'm Steve McGhee. I was an SRE for a long time, and I'm in DevRel now, which means I get to talk on like podcasts and stuff about reliability and SREing, but also like other things that are related. So like I was on a team with Ben, actually our guest, on a DevOps focused team, and we kind of went into the platform space. And I host the Prodcast, which is a podcast you should definitely subscribe to if you're a regular Kubernetes podcast listener. You should probably subscribe to both all the time for the rest of your life. That seems like a good idea.
Definitely, yes.
But there's this pretty good amount of overlap, I'd say, in the kind of reliability space and the platform space and the Kubernetes space. So like as you'll hear today, I think we're going to talk about one of my favorite Kelsey Hightower lines is like Kubernetes being a platform for platforms. And here we have someone talking about platforms. It's going to be great. So dearest guest. Mr. Good, would you please introduce yourself? Who the heck are you?
Happy to. Yeah, happy to. My name is Ben Good. I don't host a podcast.
Oh,
I feel really left out right now. But I might have to change that in the future. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm a cloud solutions architect for Google, which is a fancy way of saying that I take the different Google products and not Google products and like smash them together into solutions that hopefully solve customer problems and make things easier for everyone trying to do things on the cloud. I've been doing that for quite a few years at this point. I lose track and have to do math, but
no need.
Lots of fun stuff, and I've been doing platform engineering of late, or actually for quite some time. Actually, at this point,
You've actually been doing it the whole time, Ben. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is I think back prior to Google, I did operations for startups and a few different startups in the Denver Boulder area where I'm located, and I was doing platform engineering back then, and we just didn't call it platform engineering. When DevOps started to be a thing, it was DevOps, and now it's called platform engineering, but with a slightly different take. So. Been doing it for a while, just didn't necessarily call it that or realize that's what was happening.
I am really excited to dive into this. Forget about the podcast stuff. This is what we're here for. So let's talk about platform engineering and Kubernetes. That famous Kelsey Hightower quote that you were mentioning, Steve, Kubernetes is a platform for building platforms. Is that true, Ben? Is Kubernetes all you need to build platforms? Granted, Kelsey didn't say it was the only thing you need, but
yeah. It is definitely a tool in the toolkit, and it's a big one when it comes down to it. Kubernetes provides a lot of different constructs and capabilities that make it a whole lot easier to build platforms. So, in my opinion, it is one of the tools in the toolbox to build a platform and make it successful, but it's not the one and the only thing. Way back when I said I was doing platform engineering before it was called platform engineering, there was a company I worked for built what would have been called a portal in today's language, but it was a way that other engineers in the team could go and spin up VMs that were in the platform or databases that were in the platform. When we containerized and went to Kubernetes, a lot of that stuff became so much easier and went away because the container abstracted away the VM-ness of things. So Kubernetes is super helpful, but it's not the only thing that you need to make a platform, in my 2 cents.
So I'd love to know more about what else goes into it these days. I know, last year, 2 years ago, when was it that we were all excited about Backstage as a tool for when I think about platform engineering, I'm imagining teams at various companies who are taking the underlying infrastructure and making it something that developers and other technologists throughout the organization can consume. So what does that look like for you today? So Kubernetes is the base of managing the underlying compute infrastructure, but there's so many other types of infrastructure that you have to deal with. And then you have to deal with also how are people interacting with all of that? So what kinds of tools are you using to make that happen? And does that describe what you do?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly it. That's a very good description of what it is. So the way I think about it is when you're doing platform engineering, you're taking the underlying technology, like you say, Kubernetes for compute, maybe managed databases, for your database infrastructure, maybe self-managed databases, all the things that you need to make your applications run and run at scale. Those are the things that you're building interfaces to and you're applying automation to. And I really think that platform engineering is the process that you go through to glue all that stuff together. So from a technology standpoint, you're seeing lots of this typical, a lot of bash and a lot of scripting and, a lot of Terraform and a lot of YAML, and it's all stuck together with some sort of automation tool in the background to run it and orchestrate it. And then that interface is fungible. I've recently been working on a project where the interface is a document in Firestore. It's not a fancy UI. It's write a document in the proper document format into Firestore, and then automation kicks off and magic happens. And then that is the interface to it. You can get more advanced or user friendly with a tool like Backstage. But it doesn't have to be that. It's just got to be some sort of well-defined interface. And that's really what it comes down to. And that needs to be easy for your users or your engineers to adopt and make use of.
Yeah, there's a phrase I know goes around with platform engineering, which is the idea of golden paths, right? Which is if you're gonna do this thing, if you're gonna go down this road, don't just wander through the wilderness, because there's a lot of branches you can get caught on. There's a lot of dark corners where bad things happen. You can fall into a well or something. I don't know where this is going, but the idea is, if instead someone has already taken that path for you and has laid some bricks behind them, saying this is the way, just follow this thing, then you're more likely to succeed. And often from what I've seen is this tends to be it's kind of what you're saying with whether it's a document or a portal or something like that. It's really just at the end of the day a form of abstraction. So you want the developers who are look, I just want to get to the end of this road so I can write my code. Don't make me learn about the entire forest of infrastructure. Just get me to the point where my app is running and it's scalable and all this stuff. And what you're saying is provide a series of paths that, so in some form of abstraction. If that's a portal, great. If that's a document, great. Just something, to make it a little bit easier on everyone. Does that line up with?
Yeah. And that documentation is a good counterexample to what, everyone thinks of as it's got to be super easy and WYSIWYG and all those kinds of things. No, a golden path can be as simple as a document that lays out the 3, 4, 5 steps that you have to do to get to accomplish a task. And that is an example of a golden path. You can make it a whole bunch more than just documentation if you want to, but it doesn't have to. It just has to meet the engineer where they're at and the task that they're trying to accomplish.
And that's one place where platform engineering really gets tricky, I think, is that you've got so many different ways that you could find your way through this forest. And so one of the key things that platform engineers do within an organization is understand how different parts of the organization need to use that infrastructure. And I love that you gave the example of using a Firebase document as the interface for the workflow of doing whatever this thing is, because I think Backstage offered a vision of like a unified interface of here's how you like request compute from different sources and things like that. But it can be much simpler than that, depending on the use case. Just give them a Firebase document that they can put the thing in, and it'll go. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. In the case of the Firebase document, like you could write that through a little CLI. You could, do that through Backstage. There's no reason you can't make that call via Backstage. There's, millions of different ways that you could get that document into Firestore. Like, it doesn't really matter how it happens, so long as it's easy enough for the people that are trying to use that system.
Flexible but structured platform engineering.
Yes, well said.
That sounds like a good tagline. We should put that somewhere.
We should.
So I have to wear my SRE hat now. Once you've like gone through the phases in your platform, whatever methodology you're using, where you've abstracted away a lot of these inconvenient truths about infrastructure. You've sort of said like, don't worry about it, just follow this path, you're good. You're basically getting the user, the developer, through the provisioning stage to like the initial deployment stage. But it turns out there's more stages. Like, we're not done yet. And this is where I come in, right? This is where the SREs come in, where it's like, okay, cool. Like, we've deployed the thing. It mostly works. What's next? Like, what do you have to do next in terms of the life cycle? So sometimes we call this day 2 operations or day 2 whatever, or like just observability. Like, what are all the things that you would now want to make sure that your developers have access to, maybe through a portal, maybe through another method, beyond just that startup process? Like, what happens in the operate phase of this life cycle?
Yeah, so I think if you lump all that together, you need to provide visibility into what's happening with the workloads that are running on the platform. And that takes lots of different shapes and form factors. So if I think about the traditional, in air quotes, operations metrics, like what's my latencies, what are my failure rates, did my deployment succeed? Those kinds of things. That's a level of visibility that you can expose back up to those engineering teams using this platform engineering concept. Like, make it easy to get for those developers and engineers to see what's happening. But I think that there's more to it, to your point, than that. There's visibility into is the application working in the way that the users expect it to? So is the features and functionality happening there? That's something the platform can provide up. Cost controls can come up through there. Visibility into different security and compliance regimens or that they have to adhere to. Yeah. Those kinds of things that need to come up into the platform. And those are, to your point, all like day 2 things. Like, great, you got the first couple releases out, you got some users. Now you have to keep it up and going. And the platform can provide those ways and those golden paths to make that easy to see.
Yeah, sometimes they're referred to as like non-functional requirements. Like, this has nothing to do with widget selling, but you still have to do it. Sorry, the worry that teams have when they're not building this stuff through a platform is like, now that I've deployed my widget selling device, now I have to do day 2, but it's really more like day 222. Like, it's going to take so long to like which regulation are we subject to, and how do you generate these artifacts for which lawyers to look at? Like, what are you talking about? So like, what are some patterns that you've seen customers of ours like adopt to like what is, how do you do this in such a way that it's like part of the platform and not just like a thing you have to do? It's like a tax on your time. Like, well, how do you do this properly?
Yeah, I think that the platform can provide those things for you. So if we go back to the using Kubernetes as an example, there's things that you can do in your Kubernetes deployment around making sure that the right policies are in place, the right RBAC, all those kinds of things are in there, such that the when you get a namespace, those policies just kind of come along with it. And then that's an example of where you're getting those things via the platform for free. You can do those same things with metrics and observability and logging. Like you can, plumb those up through such that the application teams can go in and see their logs without having to do any sort of extra work or magic to make that happen.
Or log into another tool or something like that. Like, I need the credentials for the logging app now. Great.
Yeah. So it's not like those are examples. Every implementation about how you go about it is a little bit different, depending on the tool stack and all those kinds of things. But that's what the platform can do for application teams and those other engineers. It's just like, do that for them. The term is shifting down. You might have heard that before. Like those are examples of where you can shift those responsibilities down into the platform, and you just get that stuff for free because your application's running on that platform.
Observability is so important. I often hear platform engineers that I talk with when we ask for feedback on like features that we're developing and things like that. One of the things that I often hear is this kind of consideration of, well, that feature is great, but when I bubble that up to my users, how am I going to make sure that they know the pieces of that are going to keep them from spending a ton of money or running up a crazy amount of compute or something like that? I need to make sure that it's all observable and visible to them through the platform that we are building. So,
yeah, I feel like another thing that we talk about that is kind of what you're getting at, Kaslin, is like when you're developing a platform, like basically a platform doesn't just come out of the box in perfect form, like as Ben has described, like has all these things. Like you kind of have to develop it, and I think this is a basically per customer problem, like per like entity, like org, because like every company is a little bit different and has different requirements and there are different levels of like capability and like just staffing even and like regulation, and like they're all slightly different snowflakes, and I mean that not in the like pejorative sense, but just like they're all very different from each other. So one thing that I've heard, and maybe Ben, you can back me up on this, is that like whenever a team builds a platform, they tend to name it, like they give it a name, and it's sort of a pet, and then they take care of it. Like this platform is a pet, and you love it and you feed it and you extend it to exactly what you need as a team, because it's always going to be a little bit different. Does that line up with your experience?
Oh yeah. Platforms are very much bespoke things to the engineering organization that they serve, because to your point, every engineering team operates at a different skill level, a different layer in the stack. You might have different teams that are responsible for different types of infrastructure that need to come together to work on the platform together. The one that I was lightly referencing to earlier, it was called Divine Spork. That was the name that GitHub auto generated for me. I'm like, that's kind of fun. Like we're kind of spoon feeding, but it's kind of pokey. So it's a spork, and you get things by magically. So it's kind of divine. So that's what we called our platform at that company, was Divine Spork. So yeah, they're very much bespoke things. They have names, they have teams that rally around them. But yes, you do care. You care and feed for them and love them, and hopefully they love you back, and all that kind of stuff. So. But yeah, every platform is different, and I think it's a bit of an anti-pattern to go and look for the platform in a box that you can just click button, install, and like, woo, I have a platform. That doesn't typically happen.
Yeah, as we alluded to before, like Kubernetes being a platform for platforms. I've actually heard of Backstage being not a portal, but a system for building portals. So it's like kind of the same idea of like it has all these knobs, like. Don't use them all. Don't just like click install. Like you got to think about what it is you're trying to get out of this. And I think we've said in the past, like you want to the abstract idea of a platform is just a grouping of capabilities. And so like what are the capabilities that your team wants to adopt and then deliver through this platform, through whether it's through the Kubernetes side or through the Backstage thing or through the observability suite that you have through another company or through the whatever, right? There's a load of different things that you could be, a lot of stuff you build yourself too, right? So but at the end of the day, it's this set of capabilities and the fact that they're working together in concert, hopefully, that makes it beneficial to your company.
Yeah, very, very much so. Like the folks that install and are successful with Backstage they have teams or a group of people that are, modifying and building plugins for it and creating the different templates. Like it isn't just something that you get to install, but you build on it. That exposes those critical user journeys through the portal in a way that works, and that takes development effort and maintenance and care and love as well.
And this customization for different organizations and for different types of users within organizations, there's a term that we used in our notes in preparing for this interview, which was deployment archetypes. And I feel like all of this lends itself to that term, which I hadn't really seen before, but I kind of really like it. So is that what you all think of as deployment archetypes, is kind of making these workflows customized for the environment that they exist within and the users that they're serving?
I think that what you want to do is you have like a pattern for ways that you deploy things. And those patterns are what you end up exposing out through the platform. So those would be the archetypes. And you can largely group them, like we've done with, or Steve is well aware of, with like different reliability characteristics built into them. So I have this thing of this shape and size. I need to deploy it on this type of infrastructure with this load balancer configuration, this database, configuration. And that supports, this shape of user across these different regions of the world, or, this form factor. And you provide in number of those things in the platform, and those become the archetypes, if you will. And those can be genericized, and we've published some documentation around those. But that's the type of thing that you want to expose out through the platform. And then making it easy to, pick the right archetype or change between archetypes is a task that the platform helps you with and get you down that journey.
So a good way to think about this for the pure Kubernetes viewpoint, a good way to think about this is like when you're trying to make a system more reliable and more robust. Often what you do is you're like, we have one of these things. How about we have two, right? Like just have a second one. And that's great. It's a good idea. Like that's generally the method that we use to make things more robust, is that we have two of them instead of one, or n of them, right? But one thing that you could do naively is you're like, we have a cluster of stuff. Let's make a second cluster. Done. Stamp it out. Good to go. Ready, set, go. Except you put it in the same zone. Like you have two clusters that are in the same zone, and then when there's a problem in that zone, guess what? You actually only had one. You did not have two. Too bad. Bummer. You get a bad day. So there's this idea of failure domains, and this will be like familiar to a lot of SREs out in the world. But like they're like the Matryoshka dolls of like, you have like your app, and then you have like your namespace, and then you have your cluster, and then you have your zone, and then you have your region, and then you have like the universe or something. And so your failure can happen at any point along these things. And so there's this paper that came out, I don't know, years ago at this point, called Deployment Archetypes, which is like how to apply this understanding of failure domains to when you're doing deployments. And this is where like, zonal deployments versus regional deployments versus global deployments versus like multi-region versus multi-zonal versus blah, blah, blah. Like there's like these very abstract ideas of basically where to put your app in which clusters at which time. And like, it's too much. Like it's hard to understand all of it. And so what we've seen people do in the past, and Ben has done a really good job of this with some customers that I've seen of, is that like there will just be like a drop down in the portal or in that doc or something. It's like, do you want this to be a big one or a little one, and like under the covers, it's picking one of these and it's like making a bunch of choices for you so you don't make the wrong choice. So it's like, instead of saying, just give me 2 clusters in the same zone, it's like, no. Would you like a big one or a small one? And you say, big. And it's like, okay, I'm going to give you 2 clusters in 2 different regions and not tell you about it. But then also the deployment is going to be able to take advantage of that. And the observability is going to be able to take advantage of that. And like, you don't even know the whole time. It just like kind of magically happens. That's the kind of the vague idea that I get. But Ben has actually done it, so I'm curious if that holds true when you hit reality.
Very much so. Yeah, it definitely holds true. And the thing that you're doing with that little drop down is you're abstracting away a lot of the super nitty gritty detail of what customer or what cluster, what subnet, what this, what that you might have to go and know how to do otherwise. I think a lot of times when folks are trying to build a platform, you like throw a bunch of Terraform or throw a bunch of YAML at folks and say, okay, go do the thing with the YAML or the Terraform or whatever your favorite, language is.
A lot of the things that we've talked about in our conversation today are kind of evergreen topics. Reliability, making sure that the systems keep working, making sure that you understand how they're working, building golden paths. But I think a lot of that has kind of shifted recently due to industry trends. I wanted to know if you've seen any of that in your day-to-day work, Ben, if the types of golden paths that you're building these days are different and how, and all of that kind of stuff.
I think that the underlying technology changes a little bit, but really it's still the same thing, I think, that we've been doing, just with slightly different twists or name or a change of focus on how do we do it at scale, if you will. I think the rate of change in the industry as a whole it's always ever increasing, right? So like, I think the things that we have been doing, we just have to do more of those things. And maybe with different technology, not doing something different. So
yeah, in the Kubernetes space, what I've seen a lot of is hardware accelerators. It's a lot of the same kinds of stuff, but now we're enabling folks to use different types of hardware than we've used in the past, and for applications that are very particular about how they're using that hardware. So Kubernetes has traditionally allowed folks to, a lot of the management of that underlying infrastructure is handled for you through Kubernetes, and then you add another layer on top of it, the platform that users actually interact with to further abstract that. And now folks want a different type of abstraction for those types of workloads that really need careful control over those underlying hardware resources. So that's where I've seen Kubernetes doing a lot of work recently to adapt to new changes.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Like, back when Kubernetes was young and when I started using it, it was CPU and memory. Like, those were the things you had to be concerned with. Now there's networking, and to your point, there's GPUs, and how do you go about getting access to those things? But yeah, it's just, you're beginning to add more to it, but really you're still orchestrating the access to the underlying infrastructure and providing more control than you were way back forever when. But it's the same process or the same thing that you're accomplishing, just a little bit different.
I've heard that also customers will have different motivations for platforms than they used to, like sort of in the post zero interest rate ZIRP phenomenon. There's been a lot of consideration around cost management, right, and cost observability, things like that. And frankly, like part of the problem with a kind of a naive level way of doing these abstractions through platforms is like to just hide everything. And then like you get a bill and you're like, oh, whoops, we did something. And so the ability to have like to expose usage patterns and like, oh, we accidentally all the databases like early and often, right? So you can actually see in like somewhat real time, like your consumption of the database or whatever the expensive thing of the month is, and be able to control that and like make a change. So like if you do a deployment that accidentally writes 10 billion times, you should be able to, as a developer, like notice that and rectify that like all on your own. So like self-service is one of these things that is really, really ubiquitous in the marketing of platform engineering, but often we think of that just in terms of like, well, I want to make my service for the first time, like that greenfield step. But self-service also applies in the operational context as well. So does this come up like as a motivation when customers are talking to you about platform engineering, or am I making this all up?
Yeah, like there's some customers that approach it from a cost control perspective. Not many approach it from a self-service standpoint. I get a lot of customers that look at it from a security, compliance, governance perspective, and those are reasons to go about it. But that can't be the angle that you take, in my opinion. So we can't take the angle of, well, we're going to do platform engineering to reduce costs, and we're going to begin to make our engineering teams do something to reduce costs. We want to improve compliance and governance and those things, but forcing engineering teams onto the platform doesn't typically yield the desired outcome, if you will. There's oftentimes reasons why that happens, or you want to listen to those engineering teams and begin to design your platform in a way that supports those engineering teams, but also accomplishes the security and compliance and governance and cost controls, and those things come along when you begin to actually do platform engineering. So the motivation can be there, but it can't necessarily be the reason that you go to engineering teams and say, we're going to do platform engineering and you're going to use the platform because of this. That usually doesn't yield the best platform.
That opens up a whole new can of worms that we could dive into for a whole nother episode, at least, diving into security considerations, regulatory compliance issues, and working all of those into how we build platforms for specific users. But I think we've covered some really awesome stuff today with making sure that you're designing platforms to serve the users that they need to serve, and that a lot of the underlying concepts are the same as they've ever been. It's about making sure that your infrastructure is usable by the teams within the organization. And I'm excited for all of those platform engineers out there listening to do that.
Another thing that we didn't get to, which I'm amazed, Ben, how did we not mention DORA? I'm even wearing the shirt under this jacket.
That's true.
So I know we blew it. But like being able to track your team's success through metrics and being able to show that these capabilities are actually making an improvement to the lives of the developers and to the business, like, DORA, go to dora.dev to see what all those words mean. But like delivering it through a platform is totally like a good move. I believe you would agree with me on that. Side note, Ben and I work on the platform engineering chapter of the DORA survey every year, so I know he agrees with me.
It's a lot of fun. I definitely agree. A fun thing to think about from a DORA perspective in your platform engineering endeavors is using DORA metrics to understand your feature velocity and your application development practices, but also your platform engineering practices and your platform velocity, which I think is a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, platforms are software too. Well, right. Thank you, Ben. Well, we'd love to have you back either on each of our episodes or maybe another double episode. Who knows? It'll be great. Cool. You never know what's going to happen in the future, as we just learned.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you much.
You missed a page from Telebot.